Draw a map of where early humans arrived. Now draw a map of where the biggest animals on Earth disappeared. They're the same map. Every continent, every single time. Mammoths, giant sloths the size of a car. Cave lions, deer, with antlers wider than a doorway. All of them gone within a few thousand years of us showing up. So is that just what human evolution looks like? Or were early humans the single most dangerous thing prehistoric life had ever produced? Stay with me to the end, because the answer is written on bones we have already dug up. And once you have seen those bones, you will never picture a caveman the same way again. Picture one right now. You're probably seeing something slow, hairy, grunting, sitting near a fire, waiting for someone to invent the wheel. Throw that picture away. It's wrong in almost every direction. Here is what an early human actually was. No claws, no fangs, no fur worth mentioning, no armor, no venom, slower than nearly everything it wanted to eat, and much slower than the things that wanted to eat it. A wolf would beat it in a fight. A big cat would end it in about 4 seconds. By every normal measurement of the animal kingdom, this thing should have been somebody's lunch. Instead, it walked out of Africa and into every environment on this planet. Frozen tundra, burning desert, rainforest, mountains, islands. You can only reach across open sea. No other large animal has ever done that. Not one. Elephants stayed where elephants belong. Lions stayed where lions belong. We went everywhere. So how does a weak, slow, soft animal manage that? Here is one way, and it is genuinely unsettling. Humans sweat. Almost nothing else does. A deer, a horse, an antelope. They cool themselves by panting. And you cannot pant properly while you are running flat out. So a running animal heats up, and sooner or later, it has to stop. A human doesn't have to stop. So a hunter picks an animal and simply follows it. Walking, jogging, never sprinting, just never stopping either. The animal bolts, gets a huge lead, rests. The human arrives. The animal bolts again, a shorter distance this time, and rests for longer. The human arrives again. Hours pass. The gap keeps shrinking. The animal is staggering now, overheating, confused. And eventually, it simply stops because its body has given up, and the strange upright thing that has been walking behind it all afternoon finally catches up. Hunters in the Kalahari were still doing this within living memory. Chases of 30 kilometers or more on foot in the midday heat. Now imagine being an animal that has never met that before. There is no defense because there's nothing to defend against. It isn't a fight, it's arithmetic. That is what was walking into every new continent on Earth, and it never ever stopped coming. That refusal to stop is the whole reason our ancestors were still standing when everything bigger than them wasn't. If you have a bit of that same patience, the kind that stays with a story once it starts turning strange, please consider subscribing. Now, back to that trail. About 14,700 years ago, a small group of people were living in a cave in the west of England. What they left on the floor of that cave is the reason this video exists. The place is called Gough's Cave in Cheddar Gorge in Somerset. When archaeologists dug through the floor, they found bones. Animal bones, which is exactly what you'd expect. Horse, deer, the leftovers of ordinary meals. They also found human bones, and the human bones were wrong. They had cut marks on them, not random scratches, deliberate, careful cut marks. In the same places, made with the same tools, using the same technique as the marks on the deer bones lying right beside them. The bones had been chewed, and the tooth marks were human. There were 5 to 7 people in that cave floor. One of them was a child of about 3 years old. 2 of them were teenagers. And then there are the skulls. 3 of them had been worked on, not smashed open in a hurry, cleaned, trimmed neatly around the edges, and shaped into cups. Somebody sat down and took their time doing that. There is one more object, and it is the one that stays with you. A single forearm bone. It had been stripped of meat. It had been chewed. And then, before it was broken open for the marrow inside, someone carved a careful zig-zag pattern along the side of it. Stripped, chewed, decorated, then cracked open. These bones are not a rumor or a theory. They are sitting in the Natural History Museum in London. You can walk in and look at them. So there it is. Monsters. Case closed. Our ancestors hunted the giants of the world into nothing and ate each other on the weekends. That is roughly the story most people tell. But there is a competing explanation, and serious scientists have argued about it for decades. It says the extinctions had nothing to do with us at all. It says it was the climate. The world was climbing out of an ice age. Temperatures were swinging wildly. Grassland turned into forest. Forests turned into desert, and the coastlines moved. The giant animals, which need enormous amounts of food and breed very slowly, simply couldn't keep up. Under that version, we weren't killers. We were bystanders who happened to be walking past at the exact moment the world changed. It's the comfortable answer. It lets us off completely. And for a long time, it was winning, which means we still haven't answered anything. We have a cave floor full of butchered children, and we have a world falling apart on its own. And so far, there is nothing telling us which of those two things emptied the planet. Stay with me, because one of them did, and there are two problems with the comfortable one. The first is the ice. Ice ages are not rare events. Over the last 2.5 million years, the world has frozen and thawed dozens of times. Mammoths lived through those. Giant sloths lived through those. Cave lions lived through those. The cold was not new, and it had never finished them before. Something else was new. The second problem is back in the cave. Look properly at what those people did. If you are starving, you smash the skull open. You do not clean it, trim the edges, and shape it into a cup. If you are starving, you certainly don't stop to carve a decorative pattern into a bone before you crack it. That isn't hunger. That's a ceremony. Which is why researchers now think something far stranger was happening at Gough's cave. Those people were most likely eating their own dead. Not enemies, not strangers. Their own, and possibly as a completely normal way of saying goodbye. That is not a savage tearing into a rival. That's a funeral. So let's go back to the map. Because the map has a hole in it too. There is one place where the giants did not vanish. Africa. Africa still has elephants, rhinos, hippos, lions, giraffes. Tropical Asia still has elephants and tigers. Everywhere else on Earth, the big animals fell over. There, they held on. Why? Because that is where we came from. The animals of Africa had been living next door to us for millions of years. They watched our ancestors change, slowly, from something small and harmless to something carrying sharp stones, to something carrying fire, to something carrying spears. It happened across so many generations that they had time to adapt. The ones that stayed near us died. The ones that ran had babies. Fear got built in, permanently. An elephant is frightened of you today because its ancestors, thousands of generations back, learned the hard way. Now go and stand in Australia 50,000 years ago, or North America. A mammoth looks up and sees a small, slow, hairless creature with no claws and no fangs walking towards it. It doesn't run. Why would it run? Nothing that shape has ever been dangerous. It had no idea what it was looking at. And there was no time to learn because we didn't arrive over millions of years. We arrived in an afternoon. That's the answer. It was never strength. It was surprise. So were early humans monsters? No. And that is the uncomfortable part. They were people. They looked after each other. They buried their dead in their own strange way. They carved patterns into bone because patterns meant something to them. They were frightened of the dark and fond of their children and tired at the end of the day. And while being all of that, while being completely ordinary, they walked across an entire planet, and every giant thing on it fell over behind them. That is what should unsettle you. There was no plan. There were no villains. There was just an animal that was very good at surviving, arriving somewhere that had never seen anything like it. The gentle cave dweller in your head was invented long after the last mammoth had already fallen. So was the brutal savage. The real one was neither. It was the most successful animal this planet has ever produced. And you are descended from it directly. I hope this one was worth your time and that you're looking at your own ancestors a little differently than you were 10 minutes ago. There's another one waiting on your screen right now, one more thing they did that never made it into the textbook. Please have a look at it if you've got a few minutes to spare. And if this changed the picture you were carrying, please drop a like and pass it on to someone who still pictures them as gentle. If you'd like more stories like this one, please consider subscribing. This is Ancient and After, signing off. See you in the next one.